Good afternoon, everyone. Today we're going to talk about the three main theories that have been proposed in the matter of first language acquisition. We're going to talk about the main point of each theory, and we're going to discuss simple examples, whether it is an experience or if we, better said, have seen in other places. We are María, Fernanda, Nieto, Tort, and Ivette, Guzmán. So we will start.
Our first theory is about the hybrid perspective. That say that we need the influential of the environment for develop a language. The acquisition of language depends on the contact with the environment. For example, we need to be with our parents, but we need to our parents talk about something. It could be just a little words, has mom, dad, because the baby needs to listen and to be in contact with what is the meaning, what is the meaning that word, what's the meaning mom, who is that, who is mom, what is my toy, what is the meaning of, what represents for me, and what is the meaningful for that word.
This, in a better said, the kid does not only listen, but also it reproduces. The word that is said, it's constantly repetitive because it means something for the child, and also it repeats it because he sees or they see. It actually works. For example, if mom is constantly saying, "Where is mom? Where is mommy?" and stuff like that, the kid will listen and listen, and in some way, since mom it is repeated a lot, they will say mom in some way. And what we do when a child says mom, we obviously react in a positive way. "Oh yes, he said mom, great!" So the child sees that saying mom, it's actually a good thing to say, so it will repeat it everywhere. It also happens with our first word. We doesn't, well, the basic thing to say it's mom, because it is the most said word in our house. But sometimes it doesn't have to be word. But it doesn't have to be mom, sorry. For example, in my personal case, the first word that I said when I was just a kid was Tito. Where did I listen? Where did I hear that word? I don't remember exactly. But once I started to say Tito, Tito was everything for me. It could be my computer, it could be a box, it could be a sofa, it could be a bottle. Everything could be Tito for me. And I will repeat it constantly because my family would always say, "Oh, hey, there goes Tito." Oh, hey, she said Tito again. So that could be an example of the behaviorist perspective.
That theory was proposed by Skinner around the age 1065 around so. The next theory that we have to talk is the innate perspective. No, Chomsky said that wherever human, it's possible that talk about because we have a genetic that it means that we have the possibility for develop the opportunity for develop the the linguistic ability. For example, the inatives try to give an experience. It said that if some human um, in whatever other country um, learn to talk, learn to express, is because in their genetics it's implicit that ability for talk, for um, learn to a word. It's innate. We don't have to change our mind, and it isn't difficult, but I think that it's a process. In my opinion, it's a process that involves the context and the personal experience, because sometimes the babies can learn something that is not good. For example, I learned when I was 2 years in my experience. I learned to say loca to my mom, so I didn't know maybe what is the meaning about behind that word, but my mom feel felt so bad when I repeat her loca. But just I was 2 years, so probably the meaning for me um, it isn't has the same that the other people give. Sometimes in Mexico, the people say to babies to repeat a bad word, and they is learning, but not the meaning around the 2 years or 3 years, and just we repeat it because we listen, because the context say that we have to listen, but the ability is um, inside that of the human condition. What is, for example, your perspective about this theory?
This theory, my perspective. Well, now that you mentioned this, um, a good example of what Anati's perspective means is, for example, when a child is learning to walk. It is like certainly predicted that a child is going to walk, and some in some time of their life they're going to walk. So eventually it goes, but in a certain age. Um, and here where it comes another theory or perspective inside the innatist perspective, that is the critical period hypothesis. This one says or tells us that there is a certain age for learning a language. Once we have passed out this time or this age, we are not going to be able to learn a language anymore. It can be sometimes true or sometimes not. Why? Because in my experience, language, I've been learning English since I was a child. What, 4 or 5 years old maybe, and and maybe I learned English because my mom was a kindergarten teacher. I was always surrounding my teachers. I always listened to music in English. I always watched movies in English, even though sometimes I would watch them in Spanish. And the thing is, I was a child when I was exposed to English, and also because I was learning it in school. So that would be a great example of what this hypothesis says. And also because when we grow up, we find out that we have some certain difficulties to learn a language. For example, the students of our degree have certain difficulties to learning a language. Mostly because our brain is, how to say it, it is already developed. So acquiring new information in a matter of language, it's a little, it's a little bit difficult. So it can be proved, sometimes it not, since there are students who learn the language pretty quickly and they are already 24 or 25 years old. So that's my perspective and my point of view about this perspective or this theory.
Yeah, and I'm according with you because the period critical is the most important for develop whatever ability that you want to have. Maybe I've read about a history of a boy that was in so far from the village, and when he back to the village, the ability for talk he didn't develop because when the age critical for develop was out of the environment. So that it's important for learn to walk, for learn to talk, because we need constantly listening wherever we are for learn. And the brain is a beautiful machinery, mm, because it comes with all we need, but sometimes we don't understand what their processes for learn. But I think that it's primordial for the kids and the babies to have good information. Sometimes here in Mexico, the people repeat to babies. Oh, little baby, nya nya nya, and play, and that it's not good, not good that repeat to the babies has it was less than they can talk, because this is a bad disuse for the baby that can learn to speak fine and good and in a good way, in a formal way, or the normal way that needs to express what he or she wish inside of himself or herself. We need the babies learn the correct ways for express, because when they introduced to a new environment with other babies or with other little kids, they need to express really want to they want. And I think that is important because in my experience, for example, a cousin said it a word that for me, the meaning was milk, but for his mom, she doesn't know what is the meaning. Around 3 years that I was, and I repeat it, but his mom doesn't know what is the meaning, what my cousin wants, just because listen the a word that for me the meaning was me, but not for his mom. So my auntie didn't understand what my cousin wants. So it depends about the environment, but we have the capacity. Yeah, I know it. So our three theories about um,
It's about interactional and
interactions.
developmental theory. And now that you're mentioning about context, this one is certainly goes with that. Why? Well, because this theory is divided by two names, Piaget and Vygotsky. And Piaget was the one who said and children needed to interact with the context. That is, if we are exposed to the language that we want to learn. For example, I'm returning back to to my case. Sorry, I was when I was a kid exposed to all English songs, teachers talking in English, certain dynamics with that matter, but also it is but also we learn when we are surrounded by different things, and we know these things are by a name. For example, if we are constantly repeating that is a sofa, then someday you will say sofa because you have already how is this called? I forgot this word. We have already interacted with that word. We have already interacted with it, so we know that it is a sofa. And it can be with a hand of experience. And the other point of view was by Gotsky, who says, no, it is not the context, it is not the surrounding, it is the people. Children learns language with other people, interacting with other people, and that's why teachers, language teachers, always tells you if you want to learn English or whatever the language you want to learn, you have to travel. You have to go to that place, so you will learn in a better way what the language is. And it can be proved in a certain way. It can be proved that even if we are grown ups, we learn a language if we are pretty exposed to it. If we wake up, we interact with other people of the same language, then we will acquire the language, even if the use of the.
But in the case of the guys, I think that both things are very important. For example, if you just say that we need the objects, we need, for example, to play with objects. So when it's immersed in a context that the boy is in kindergarten and exists other babies, other kids for talk, and they want to express my toy, for example, if I was a little boy, a little girl, and that it's important because it's representative for me. The meaningful for me, the most important has was Tito for you, and was my nono. My nono was a mono. How it said it. How can I say it? Nono was my favorite toy when I was around 2 or 3 years, and for me it was very important to play with Nono, and for other kids, their toys was very important for give a meaning that what represent what knowledge they acquire in their houses, in their family, with their sisters or brothers, with their cousins. The family context is very important, and that's meaning what happened and how I understand the world in my family. It's important for the kid that arrive or introduce in other context, a preschooler here in Mexico, kindergarten in other places, because mediantly that toys I can't give a meaning or a sense of the life for me as a baby, as me, as a little girl, as a kid, it's important. And the other question is what when I'm in front of other little boy, I can express that I had in my past that I've learned before. So it is very interesting to see to see
To
and
see?
compare that experience of how we acquire the language. For example, first we need to be able to develop um, a process of learning is auditory discrimination. We need to hear what is the meaning and create a relationship what it makes me feel, what emotion feel. For I can give a word a sense I need that object, that people represent something familiar for me. For example, a word presents emotional meanings, represent a concrete things and the cognitive um, creation or the cognitive learning I've learned in my first years. It's very important. So we need to first uh, discriminate what we hear and create a sense, create a meaning for I can create a word. After, I think that we need to memorize and create a relationship with that object and after share it with other people. What do you think about it?
I think it's great. Well, I think you're right. I think the matter that we're touching now, maybe we should have covered it before, but it doesn't matter. Um, when we are going to before these theories, we have some stages. Let's talk it in a way. And I don't know if you have realized that the first step to human communication is crying. And once, because sometimes no, always a baby develops a different way of crying. If he's hungry, he cries in a way. If he's uncomfortable, he cries in another way. If
Do you
he
remember some experience?
well, exactly as a baby, no, but I remember that when
Your
I
mom
was
maybe told to you?
calling to me, or well, an experience that my mother says to me, that always tells, is when I was born. I was constantly crying and crying and crying and crying. My mother decided to tell to the nurse, give me the baby. Once the nurse gave her the baby, she was like, why are you crying? Don't cry, baby. I'm here. Mom is here. And suddenly I stopped crying. The reason why I was crying, I don't really know. But uh, we, I and my mom, excuse me, developed a little link starting for it. Why was the reason I was crying in that moment? I don't know. But it is certainly a way to tell our moms
What do you wish?
what we want, what we wish exactly. And then once we develop a word and its K, and taking back to the example I gave for the behaviorist perspective, the first thing we always say is mom, because mom has an emotional impact on us. Uh,
I'm
uh,
according with it.
exactly.
I'm according. My mom was the person who give me what I can eat, no? And so it's important. But for example, my first word was wawa, and wawa expressed for me something beautiful and what I could play in that moment. So that until these days for me is important, my wawa. And I think that the meaning for me that it represents a part of myself, an conscious and emotional part of myself. Until these days.
Until these days.
Until these days. The guaguas are the best for me more than my mom. And that is crazy.
And that is crazy,
And
exactly.
when I told to my mom loca and I didn't know what is the meaning, I learned what the meaning was my mom. Push my head and
Don't you call me
break
loca.
my heart. Break my heart when I learned what is the meaning that or the price that you say to your mom loca when do you don't know what is the real meaning because exist people that it's not good for you but that people make you to repeat that words and it's not good for a baby or for a kid but we learn with the experiences and we need to the experience for grow up. It's not the other way.
Exactly. And now that you say that, I think that language it's all about experience. Before going to school, we have already learned some words. We have certain syntax of how to say. The first thing sometimes we say is mom, obviously, as we have already covered, but also we said another word that is the word we want. For example, if we are hungry, when we say mom cookie or mom hungry, well, it's mostly what we want, that in this case is cookie or some candy, chocolate, soda, whatever you want to call it. And then it's mom cookie or need or mom bathroom or mom sleep or sometimes like that. We already have a syntax, but not exactly because we know how a sentence or a phrase is formed, but because we are ordering in our needs. Our first need is calling mom, and our second need is telling our mom what we want. And that is basically what we learn on the year, another second year of living, let's call it in that way. And the third one is when we already are learning that there is certain syntax, but still we are not conscious about it. I don't know if I am being very clear. And one thing that I have seen is that the first thing kids unmistakable learn are no. And I can see it with the kid of the owner of the shop, of the little shop we have or over there. If we are telling her mom, we want to buy that, she's saying no. No what? I don't know. But she's always saying no to this, no to that. And once we already know to say no, then the next thing we learn to say are questions. But we don't, we do it unconsciously. For example, if we do not find our mother, when we say mom, with that rising, we already learn better.
The sound.
Exactly, the sound of the question. And by the past of the years, or over the time, we are learning certain words that for us are I forget this new, and it is that new that we want to apply
New
it. Concepts. Exactly, new concepts, and we want to apply it even if we don't know how to apply it. For example, for example, for example,
I think the language is something very abstract process because you don't just learn the word, you learn the sense, the meaning, immediately experience, and sometimes that word involves a concept more abstract behind that it was, for example, when you feel bad, maybe it's a new concept. How a baby say that, or little kids say that what is the meaning of go on with a doctor, or with a kindergarten, going to kindergarten. So it's a process very abstract that just human have the possibility for learn to talk and express ideas or writing and to be a comprehension about the world, to be conscious about the environment of the kids that it's a process very abstract that any animals have. The animal just can communicate mediantly some sounds, but it not words and not represents abstract concepts, and it is very important. And for conclude, we have to say we have to say that learn some language, whatever language is very abstract, complex, and that just humans have the possibility for learn.
In fact, and to resume, we covered with some examples what it is the three main theories: behaviorist by Skinner, um, innatist by Chomsky, and the developmental interactional perspective by Piaget and Vygotsky. We can say that, in certain terms, it is all based of experience. They can only glow, and in fact, it is a process. And the similarity I want to remark is the fact that, want it or not, we need experience. We experience the fact of if we imitate, in the case of behavior, if we imitate a word and we have a positive reinforcement, then we do it. In the innatist is we start to talk, but we all also experience that fact that we start to talk, even if just by da da or blah blah and that kind of stuff. And in the directional, it's also experience with surroundings or with people, and that's why we would like to remark. So, thank you everyone for listening to us. It was a nice. It was all. It was nice. So,
Thank you.
until next time.